All right. Welcome to Heller Barnes and Ask Us Anything. And of course, one of the great things is you can go ahead and ask us anything. We may not answer it, but we're happy to have you here asking questions. And we have an excellent guest today. This is going to be a fun session. And Johnny, I mean, you've known Richard 400 times longer than I have. Can you give us a little insight into how you guys met and how you
Sure.
know him?
Wizard of the First Order, Richard Rieman. And I met when Sean Pratt and I and Anna Clement, I think, did a workshop in Denver. So that had to be when the hell was that? 19?
Yeah, who knows? It was
17, 18, 19. One of those years in the year two in the two in this millennium. Um, and I met him and his lovely daughter Erin. They were at the workshop, and we became friends. And I'm gonna just say Richard is involved in some, I mean, rather some sort of profit things. He's involved in some really important work. The first time I met him, we talked about a lot of things, and he put together this organization. He'll tell us more about the details that brings stories to visually impaired and hearing impaired kids. He does more than that, of course, but one of his first and most important loves, and I got involved in it with him, and so did Joanna Perrin. He put out his imagination
storybooks.
storybooks, and we put out Winnie the Pooh, which was a big Winnie the Pooh in a public domain, and everybody. I know Barbara Rosemont did a Winnie the Pooh, and Joel Leslie Frumkin did Winnie the Pooh, and we did a multicast Winnie the Pooh. So I was Winnie, I was Winnie the Pooh, and I sat in my booth during the little Winnie lines, and then Joanna come in and do and do. She was a
She
rabbit.
was
I don't
Rue.
remember.
She was
What was it?
Rue.
Yeah,
Yes.
Rue. Yeah, yeah. Whatever had these lines, and then to make it accessible for kids, someone else tells what's happening. They describes the pictures like you tell a sight impaired person what's happening in the daily comic strip. It's kind of hard, but it's interesting. So all that came together into a really wonderful, just beautiful Winnie the Pooh. It was just gorgeous, and many kudos to you, my friend, for that.
Thank you. Winnie the Pooh, the accessible version, is the number one selling version of Winnie the Pooh on Audible.
Is it really?
It is. And we've made thousands of dollars for our nonprofit from it. And it's been very successful. And as you said, we use audio description of the pictures. We just describe the illustrations. So that makes it makes so much more sense
Who
as an
writes the
audiobook.
description of the visuals?
Well, I have some professional audio description writers who write for Netflix, HBO, ABC, the folks at IDC Digital that I'm working with in a partnership. They all know how to professionally describe pictures where it's not too much, and yet we have the benefit of time, where we have more time to describe things than if you're doing audio description for TV or movies. We have to fit in between the dialogue. So it becomes a different experience
It's also different.
when you add audio description.
How did you get
Imagine
started with this? I mean, why you? I mean, I don't want to. Well, first off, I'm ignorant. I would have never thought of this. How did you get? Why? What drove you to this?
Well, have been part of the blind community for a long, long time. I actually myself have progressive glaucoma, and I'm losing my eyesight. But I was a guide for blind skiers for many years and a volunteer for Learning Ally, Reading for the Blind. And my blind friends all said to me, 90% of blind children are not learning Braille anymore.
Hmm.
They're being mainstreamed into classrooms and they're totally dependent upon audio.
they're
We
not learning
need,
Braille.
yeah, that Braille is only, about 10% of the blind children right now. It is fading in popularity, unfortunately,
I'm
as there are
shocked.
fewer schools exclusively for the blind, fewer instructors in Braille for the blind. So it's really changing, and that's the National Federation of the Blind statistic. And so I said, well, audio description is in the movies for you. What if we added audio description of the illustrations in picture books.
Wow.
That would make it make sense not only to blind and visually impaired children, but to all children. Suddenly, a picture book makes sense because the pictures are all described. So that's how I got into it. And I ended up, the deaf community contacted me and said, we love what you're doing with the audio described videos. Can you add an ASL, sign language to them? Because children at that age are just learning sign language, and illustrated books are perfect for them. And so I linked up with the Describe and Caption Media Program funded by the Department of Education and run by the National Federation of the Deaf, Foundation of the Deaf. So basically, we have created over 200 accessible books in video and audio, with audio description, with sign language, with captions, with a downloadable Braille file for those children who do know Braille. They can even print out a copy of the book with the pictures described.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, so if is it one book that people would see people would see that would have the audio description and the for the
Separate.
signing?
Yes, yes. Basically, we do video versions with ASL and AD, audio description, and we're also doing audiobook versions with the description because it builds a ramp to the blind community for these illustrated books.
That's amazing.
It's not only it's just wonderful you're doing that now. I remember when you started doing this, it's really ramped up. I mean, it's really taken off and been quite successful thanks to your. I remember you sent me the local Denver stations featured you. A lot of them did when we came out with Winnie the Pooh, and I'm just so pleased and happy for you.
Well, thank you. And it was fun at the Audis in New York. I showed up in full wizard regalia, and and
Don't we
I
all?
actually, yeah, I received a special recognition award from the at the Audis, and it was a very nice experience. And we've won actually many awards for some of the books we've done, for the free podcast we do, the illustrated audiobooks with the Audiobook Wizard podcast. And
tell us where they can find that, where folks can
that anywhere, basically podcasts are heard.
What's its name again?
It's called Illustrated Audiobooks.
Oh, hold it.
With the Audiobook Wizard.
Okay,
and
well.
We have about 50 audiobooks up there with audio description, and going to be adding more.
That's great.
So free podcast. The videos are made free to people who register with the DCMP. If you have a blind, deaf, or even learning challenged child, you qualify to be able to see all these videos for free.
That's just great. It's such an impressive, truly impressive thing you're doing. Wonderful. Tell us about how you started on this road. I mean, we know what you've done the last 5, 6, 7 years with this. What preceded this? Tell us about your a guide for. You've said all these bizarre job titles. Audio descriptive writer. No one ever said, what do you want to be when you grow up? A fireman or an audio description writer? No, that never happened. So,
I know. Well,
tell us about your world. How did you start into this?
I got into radio news early on. I'm one of those announcer guys. And I worked at WLS, WMAQ in Chicago, the RKO Radio Network, WTOP in Washington. I was doing the news and had the privilege of, when I was in Washington, being the Washington bureau chief for RKO. And I traveled with President Reagan around the world in the press plane. That was an exciting time. And of course, I'm dating myself, but I was born in the mid 1900s,
Yeah, some of us remember those days. Sorry. I mean.
So yes. But after radio news was deregulated by President Reagan and his FCC, 80% of the stations in America stopped carrying news because they didn't have to. They weren't required to carry news or public affairs anymore. So
Just
80% of the radio news jobs in America went away. And
yeah.
that's,
Thanks the actor President Reagan.
yeah, yeah.
He did so much good stuff.
So I made the transition at that point, being comfortable sitting in a room by myself, reading out loud in front of a microphone, to audiobook narration. Sean Pratt was actually my first instructor. I mean, we're talking a long time ago, back when he was in DC. And he kind of beat the announcer voice out of me because I was in the, this is well, WL, WWEL. All is well on WL. And he was like, no. So,
And you have
but
the look.
Hey, 'cause that's how he reads now, man.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's he
So,
learned from you.
yeah. But I wasn't one of these guys who was on the radio and then went home and, hi, honey, how are you?
Hey, pass the salt, darling.
Yeah. So that's how I got into audiobooks was Sean Pratt actually, and using my background as a journalist, I wrote a book, The Author's Guide to Audiobook Creation, and I interviewed Paul Rubin, Jeffrey Kafer, lots of people about how an author creates an audiobook. And funny story that Amy Rubinate may remember. I was at one of the conferences, and she said, "I wanted to ask you, what makes you qualified to write this book on the author's guide? I've never heard of you."
How's that Amy?
That's Amy.
She said that about Heller too. Anyway.
And I said, well, basically it's just a series of interviews I've done with actual narrators, and so that was a lot of fun. I mean, Paul Rubin talking about the phony baloney voice syndrome and things like that. It's just
I'll be
was
seeing Paul
ton of
after
fun.
this show's over. I'm gonna go meet him downtown, so I can give him a
Yeah.
message. I'll tell him you said hello.
Yes, and yeah, it was a fun introduction, and so I became not just an audiobook narrator, but also a producer. I decided to, contact authors and turn their books into audiobooks, and I still do that a little bit on the side. Johnny, as you know, I posted, "Dude, where's my flying car?"
Yes.
Recently, and we received 183 auditions on Audible.
Wow.
And and
And they were
I'd
all
say,
spectacular, right?
oh yes, of course. I mean, especially the ones where, let's see, we had one guy whose sample didn't start for 10 seconds. We had another who sounded like, I mean, he was shouting in a bathroom. Yeah, the
Johnny.
quality.
Richard, wait. Did you get these folks from my workshop alumni group?
Some of them, yes,
But
absolutely.
not the ones who sucked, right?
No, of course not.
Yeah,
No,
I thought.
no, the people in your group are the ones who are
Yeah,
qualified. But dealing with these books on the other side, you don't realize the author decided to make some changes in the book. So he's like, he doesn't want to do the audiobook until the new version is out. So I have 183 people who auditioned are wondering
waiting.
what's going on, what's
Yeah.
going on,
Well, why don't you
but
contact all of
yeah,
them?
yeah, of course. Yeah, it's one by one.
Give them
And
But
stop
hold
by
on, I
their
want to say so.
homes.
So that's the point that people who are newer to this business, they're auditioning and they're expecting that you would contact them if you're delayed or if you're. I mean, so let's talk about the reality of being on the other side of it. So I audition for your book, and why don't you contact me within the first week?
yeah, it is, of course, you get all these individual emails through the ACX system.
Okay.
If you're dealing with ACX, which we are in this case, and you don't get their emails. You can only contact them through the system, and so it takes like one at a time for you to respond. And when you're
Right.
getting 183 different auditions, it just is almost impossible.
How long did it take for 183 to come in? Was that 6 months?
2 weeks.
Okay.
Because I mean it's $200 per finished hour, so it's a decent amount.
Okay.
Obviously, not the union rate, but I talked this author into first he wanted to use AI. No. Then he wanted to do it himself, but he's never been a public speaker. No. So I talked him up into actually paying at least a decent rate for a 10-hour book about the automotive industry. But please, if you audition for it, know that we just haven't made the decision yet. And I'd say the main thing is the difference between reading out loud and telling a story, even with nonfiction. And
Yeah.
Johnny and Sean Pratt talk about this all the time, that you're telling a story to someone. And that is what distinguishes the best auditions from those that just are people reading out loud. They may have a wonderful voice, but they are reading out loud.
God save us from people with good voices.
Lucky I don't have one of those.
So
Yeah,
can you
yeah,
tell
you
us
sound
about
like hell.
the top two or three that you instantly turned off? So let's do two things. What
Okay.
instantly within the first 10 seconds no,
Yeah.
and then I got a
Well,
follow-up question to that.
yeah. I mean, the the book is filled with like German names and things like that, and I pointed that out in the audition
Wiener
script.
Schnitzel.
And so the one of the first lines is about Daimler, and if they said Daimler, I went, you're out of there.
Okay.
I haven't done the research to even know how to pronounce the word, and then secondly, the quality. If I hear an audition that begins with I don't even bother. It's like people have
Some
never
people
heard
need
of
that line of coke to
RX
get going,
and
though, Richard. You got to give them a little leeway.
But
but
that's an interesting thing. People don't realize. They think maybe you wanted raw and that you will imagine what it's going to sound like when it's
Yeah.
yeah.
done. And are you saying that's not the case?
Well, you're competing with professionals
Okay.
who have setups, who have talked to Don Baarns about getting their audio set up correctly, and they sound incredibly professional, friendly. A smile in their voice always makes a difference when you're narrating any book, as long as it's not like horror, but which I've done too. The So really, having a nice clear sound. I don't care about hearing breaths, things like that. I mean, that's fine. That's natural. We all breathe, and people worry about those things. But I can tell when they've used RX or something to eliminate all the breaths. It just doesn't sound natural.
Right. Right. You mean, wait, that's so weird. People breathe? I can't. You're in what planet are you? Well, you're a wizard. That's why. Okay. So, so what now? Flip it around. What were the things that instantly caught your ear as, ooh, this guy's like Heller? What?
I mean, and I'll go back to the storyteller, someone who I know is talking to me. Basically, we're having a conversation. That's what I'm listening for in the voices, that they understand that, you know, even with nonfiction, as I said, it's very important to know that you're just telling a story. And that makes such a difference in the way it's delivered. And that's one of Johnny's special gifts. He's a wonderful storyteller.
And how long would you So, on average, be like if you heard me for 10 seconds or 400 minutes, how long be from the time I start to the time you think, ooh, this guy might make the cut?
Uh, First 15 to 30 seconds of an audition, I can tell whether that person's going to get a star to as one of my favorites to listen back to later.
Okay. We get it for our
It really
forehead?
doesn't take long. Yeah. And
Okay.
then I usually skip to a part of the audition that has some other pronunciations to do, or something where they say something funny, and see how they handle that, if they have a personality that comes through.
Yeah. I've got mine in the mail. It's coming soon, but yeah. So okay, that's a
Well, your
good thing.
personality's on the way. Yeah.
Hey,
You know, the auditioning is such a it's an art in and of itself. In my theater days, I wrote a show that we did actually here off Broadway for a while. But in the audition stage of it, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But some people are really good at auditioning and not that good at the actual job. So it's sort of a different skill. So it's really difficult for the talent buyer to determine this is a good audition, but is it a good actor? Then sometimes you need. It'd be nice sometimes if there's especially a project so close to your heart, if there's a second step, like in the commercial on-camera commercial world, at least back in the day, you'd be on hold, you'd come back for a callback, and so
Mhm.
instead of 150 of you, there's 3 of you, and that helped. And I think there's some advantages to that because some people are skilled at auditioning, but they can't sustain it. And in the world of audiobooks, you have to sustain that storyteller, that engaging read for 7 to 25 hours, depending what the book is.
so do you do that, Richard? Do you have a kind of a secondary thing after you narrow it down to the top?
I do.
You
I
do?
narrow it down to the top 10 usually, and I will do some research on those narrators to see how many books they've done, to see whether they've done books for the major publishers, their experience level, because that tells me a lot.
Well,
And
what
then
if
I,
they're totally inexperienced, but you love them? Is that still
uh,
okay for you?
yeah, it has happened basically that a new voice basically comes on, and I go, "This is a very talented person," and I will really take the best of the auditions. I put them in there. I check them off even before I check out their experience, but I don't totally eliminate someone who's been doing this for just a couple of years, because I was there once and so were you.
Well, you're still
Uh,
auditioning, no? You're still auditioning.
well, I'm so busy these days with
Your own
creating
stuff. Yeah.
you know the audiobooks for children, and narrating those, that
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
good.
narrate many books for Audible, and well, I work with Dreamscape Select actually as my partner, and we do wide distribution over Barnes and Noble Audio and all the different places.
I'm so proud and happy. I'm so proud of you and happy for you, truly. What?
I do think so. Tom Barkley has a very fascinating comment here, and this
Okay.
my wife goes through the same thing. But let me bring the comment up, and then we'll talk about it here. So I'm German speaking. I would have said one versus something official German pronunciation only because it's accepted English pronunciation. Storytelling, yes, of course. My wife talks to me about this all the time, where she knows some French, Italian, and when a French word comes up, she has the dilemma of, am I going to do it American, like I'm not going to say
Yeah,
croissant.
you can anglicize it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
the right term. Okay, I don't know that term. Anyway, so you're going to make it sound like Don, who doesn't know any French, and I've heard of what croissant is. I've been to yeah. So
Yeah.
so the question is, sometimes a specific thing could be a disqualifier.
Yeah.
But if they had said to you, by the way, I'm saying it more English, I could have said it, or do you? I mean, how does that work? Because that's
Yeah, I know, and it's only because the author had the preference for the German pronunciations, and
okay.
I pointed that out in the audition script.
Oh, you terrible
So,
person, you giving us
so
hints that we have to read. So in other words,
Pretty
you
high
would,
yeah,
expectations there.
yeah.
yeah, I know,
So in
I
other
know.
words, you would say, "Oh, if Don didn't even read the stuff that I put there, and he just didn't pay any attention, oh, there I am.
Yeah,
Then,
yeah.
yeah, we're not gonna have. I could do Winnie the Pooh that way because, yeah, no, yeah. So that's pretty cool, though. If you specified it, then there's no excuse for me to miss that. That means I'm just being sloppy. So
I,
Yeah,
I
cool.
will say an interesting thing that comes up sometimes with foreign languages and anglicizing or not, and Mr. Barclay will appreciate this. I think I think I've told this story. I've done books where I did a book about a serial killer from a specific town, not in Germany, I guess Austria. I have no sense of geography. Somewhere over there in German land. Um, um, and a friend of mine's husband is from the town and knew the story. So there's a chunk of the book, a page and a half, that's in it's in German, basically, or Austrian, where the hell it was. This guy speaks exactly from that place. So he did it for me. He just did it on the tape. He read it for me, and then he read it again slowly. And I just mimicked him, did exactly what he said. And I sent it to him. He goes, hey, that's perfect. Exactly. That's perfect. You can't do better than perfect, I don't think. So the publisher, who shall remain unnamed, said, no. They had someone on staff who I think had taken a week trip to Berlin, and they said it wasn't right. So I had to redo it improperly, as far as I could tell. So sometimes these these vocal things, people don't realize, in a certain place in Germany doesn't sound like another place in Germany. Like the Bronx doesn't sound like Alabama, and people don't think about that when they do these accents.
Yes, I did a wonderful book, the Auschwitz number 32407, about a man who was a survivor of the Auschwitz camp. And he had his pronunciations of these Polish places where he was from. He was a Polish Jew. And I got lots of criticism about mispronouncing those cities, even though I used his pronunciations. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Best you can do.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone. Part of it is people take these audiophile comments a little bit too much to heart. It's like the same. It's like you can do it on Yelp too. You can. Richard Rieman is the worst thing I've ever heard. Well, who am I? It's just a lot of that stuff happens. Tell us about how you picked Winnie the Pooh to be your main thing.
Well, that was the main book because every character in Winnie the Pooh has some sort of difference and challenge. I mean, if you look at the characters, they all have these issues, with ADD as, Tigger and it's just, so it's a beloved book that went into the public domain. And I just said, what if we got a cast? Now, half of the voice casts are blind and low vision voice actors. And that's something that I also want to do, is give them the more opportunities to voice more books and get paid for it. We are an AFTRA signatory, Imagination Storybooks. So we make sure that we give them a path to union membership also.
That's great.
And although many of our narrators, like yourself, Johnny, are volunteers, and we appreciate that so much. But, I can throw out a lot of names. Tavia Gilbert, Ann Richardson, Tom Jordan, Trenton Bennett, Mike Lenz. I mean, all of these people have donated their voices to these projects. And I just want to thank everybody in the audiobook industry for doing that, for lending their voices. And Winnie the Pooh is just a ton of fun. We're going to do Wizard of Oz next with an all blind and low vision voice cast, actually.
Oh, wonderful.
We have Aria Mia Loberti, who was the star of All the Light We Cannot See on Netflix. She is our Dorothy.
Oh, wonderful.
And we have the blind alien from Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Bruce Horak. He's our Scarecrow. So we've got Broadway actors and things like that. So we'll be out with the accessible Wizard of Oz later this year.
That's marvelous.
Should we show a little bit of the Winnie the Pooh?
Absolutely.
Is this good time here, Johnny?
Sure. Whatever you guys, Richard.
Watch this. Let me see.
You need to say anything about this? You need to set this up?
This
like
is
a talk show.
This is just a sample of the accessible Winnie the Pooh, starring Johnny Heller as Pooh himself.
Edward Bear, known to his friends as Winnie the Pooh, or Pooh for short, was walking through the forest one day, humming proudly to himself. He had made up a little hum that very morning as he was doing his stoutness exercises in front of the glass.
Tra-la-la, tra-la-la-la.
as he stretched up as high as he could go, and then,
Tra-la-la, tra-la, oh, help, la!
As he tried to reach his toes.
Winnie the Pooh bends and reaches for his toes in front of a shard of mirror that stands against a wall.
After breakfast, he had said it over and over to himself until he had learned it by heart, and now he was humming it right through, properly. It went like this.
Tra-la-la, 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 rum-tum, tiddle-lum-tum, tiddle-diddle, 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 diddle-diddle, rum-tum-tum, tiddle-lum.
So when was Heller going to come in?
Yeah.
Now, Johnny, so that was a one-take
Yeah.
thing to start humming like that and get that all together? Was that you did it all in one take?
No, actually, no. I because it's all, just sounds. I messed it up at least 7 times. I added too many tiddlies or ums or something, and then so I kind of had to look at it and do tum tum tum. I had to count it out, so I didn't because I know that in a project like this, kids are learning how to read and all that kind of things, and so you can't add extra las and tums because they can. Those who can see it. So
Yes.
you want to make sure that it's as dead on as you can make it.
And yeah, and of course there was only a small example of the description, but that's how it just fits into the flow of the
Yeah.
story. And it's co-narrated
ASL
by
is
the
great.
audio describer.
Yeah, that was marvelous. So just so wonderful. What a wonderful thing. I mean, now there's so much to talk about. So the project, the next big project is a Wizard of Oz.
Yes. Mhm.
Um,
And we have IDC Digital, which is one of the largest audio description companies in the world. They are doing 20 audiobooks with audio description for us for free. They're
Wow.
producing them just, basically because they know there's such a need for it out there. And so we work very closely with them. And we're putting the audiobook versions up through, as I mentioned, Dreamscape Select and the great people there who are distributing them. And we put the AD insignia on the covers of the books. And we make sure that people know that they're audio described. The pictures are audio described. And when we get to a certain point, I've talked to the people at Audible about this. I would like them to add audio description, audio described audiobooks as a category. And that way they'll be so much easier to find.
Oh, it's a great idea. Yeah. You should do, remember, what's that book? Henry and the Donut Factory. Remember that book when you were a kid?
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is we did If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And because as a nonprofit, we have the right to make any book accessible. And so it really is, it was a ton of fun to do.
Yeah.
And the author of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie heard about it and saw the video we did and was just over the moon pleased and said, "This is amazing so much. Thank you so much for doing this." So we've gotten nothing but positive feedback.
That's wonderful. You guys should, do the Hardy Boys.
Yeah, well,
But you should do the whole
see,
series. You're a little
but they
older
don't
kids.
need the illustrations though. So
Well, that's true.
they're
Well, draw the
already in
pictures too.
audio.
Have someone draw the pictures and then describe
Oh.
them.
Yeah.
So
You
most
know,
of
they're-
the books then, okay, now a light bulb went off. Okay, 4 years later, Don's starting to get it. You're often using books that are already illustrated. You're not going to
Yes.
take yeah. Okay.
That's the gap we're trying to fill. I mean,
Yes.
Winnie the Pooh had many illustrations, and one of our blind narrators, Tristan Snyder, who's also a pro audio engineer, a Pro Tools expert, who's been blind since birth. He had never really realized what Winnie the Pooh looked like or some
yeah.
of these other characters because they're not really well described in the books,
Oh, that
actually.
makes sense.
And they're just there. And so for the first time, he realized what Eeyore, actually looked like, and it's just fun. It's a fun,
It
wonderful
may
project.
still be there, but I'm trying to remember. In New York, I have to ask Joanna where it was. I think it was in the main library building. They had Winnie the Pooh, the teddy bear, and Eeyore and the little teddy bears from there. They had because they had a I'm trying to remember. Robert Fass and Joanna and I went, and it was a J.R. Tolkien thing, but they had Winnie the Pooh stuff, Christopher Robin stuff too. Um, and so you could see the actual teddy bear that the story is based on.
Yes.
So that was
Yes.
pretty cool. Now, I never read Winnie the Pooh. I never had it read to me either when I was a kid. I never read it till you asked me to do it.
Yeah.
So
And it's just a wonderful book. It's a series of
Yeah.
great stories,
Oh, yeah.
and we've had a lot of fun with it. And I just doing these children's illustrated books. It's just so important, as I mentioned, for the deaf community, for the blind community, to have all these books available to them with sign language, with audio description. And we are so happy to be able to work with DCMP, and that's where you can find these books, dcmp.org, Imagination Storybooks. Like I said, 200 books and counting,
That's one.
made into accessible audio and video books.
Now, do you want people to be, you want me to send you an email twice a week saying I'd like to be on your roster? Or do you, or do you want 4 times a week? I could do
Well,
more.
it's wonderful the number of people who would love to voice our projects. We have so many volunteers now that basically I am, don't even have to pay the narrators for their part.
Shut up, Richard.
I do pay
It was a
the.
mistake to begin with.
I know, but I mean, these books are 15 minutes long.
Well, yeah, and you're, yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. You're not
and
doing, yeah.
you know,
Most people get it. You're not trying to go, hey, I'm going to make $1 million on this, even if you
right,
could.
Well,
right.
let me ask this then to keep it, because I know that the shorter books and you have the volunteers, and that's all wonderful. Some of the other projects like Dude, Where's My Flying Car, and other
Yes.
things that you want to pay for, is it worth their while for the folks in our audience and folks who watch us later to drop a line, say, hey, because I'm happy that anybody wants to volunteer for you, and I don't want you to be overwhelmed with volunteer calls, but if someone wants to, hey, if you have a paying job, I'd like to be considered for it.
Yes.
Would that be offensive to get that email?
Not at all. And I've built quite a roster of narrators. Many of whom I've met at your workshops, Johnny.
Yeah.
And I just kind of know, which ones are, as I keep coming back to this, are the storytellers in the group.
Yeah.
And that's who I'm after.
You will see a bunch of them in New England.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your roster will grow exponentially.
So I do it. So, and I'm going to, Sasquatch, I'm going to ask, so we're going to change subjects for just a second and then come back to this. So someone's asking about best headphones for audiobooks, and someone else is asking, how big is your budget and that kind of thing. So suggestion on that. Those are excellent questions. First off, I would tell people you could actually record with good monitors. You don't need headphones to do this. If you're going to do it, then it does come down to budget and what your setup is. And I do a tech show every week, and I'm more than happy to go into more details. Matter of fact, that's a killer subject. I should talk about headphones and monitors and things like that on the live VO Tech Simplified Live. I will do that. I'll put it on the schedule. It's an excellent question. And since I have Richard and Johnny here, for today, we'll continue to talk about things narrator focused, but that's a killer question, appropriate. And we'll get back to that. And just what you need to do is hit me up on the tech show. And that's a great, great subject and something that would be super helpful for a lot of people. So I don't mean to not
Don,
answer a good question like that in this, but we've got these, so.
Don, I just got a message from the lovely Joanna, who's in the living room, as a matter of fact. Show me the picture at the New York Public Library exhibition of Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore and stuff. It's a photo that I just sent to your cell phone, Don, and I don't know if you can get it from there onto our screen.
I hear this
But it shows you
beeping
the
going on in the
originals.
background, and I'm like, who's calling me? Who's sending me? I'm just going to
The
ignore
real
this.
Winnie
I
the
sent
Pooh.
you the picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see
So
if I
it's
can get
Winnie
that
the
up.
Pooh and Eeyore and
Yeah.
I don't even remember the characters. Roo, I think.
Kanga and Roo and Owl.
Yeah, well, you'll identify
you
the
know,
Donkey. I don't know if Donkey can even get the picture up
you
from the
know.
phone
I'll
to
see if I can
this.
get that up. Okay. While you guys
Yeah, it's
talk
pretty
among
cool.
yourself.
We'll check.
So the next
Talk
thing,
amongst ourselves.
yeah, I mean, in addition to being an audiobook narrator, and especially having done so many children's audiobook narrations, I started as a writer when I was in second grade. I wrote stories, and I discovered if I put my classmates' names in them, I could charge them a nickel to read it. So I became a professional writer in the second grade. You know, just writing on the paper. You know, two
Just dropping
sides of the
names.
paper, and put their names in as characters. And I was a successful writer. That's an entrepreneur. And so I've always been a writer. And now that I've gotten into narrating so many books, I've written a children's book, The Day the Clouds Went Away. And this is
Oh,
my
wonderful.
book
And there's
that I've
you.
written. And there I am. I am Fumbledore the Wizard. And
What's the name of the wizard?
Fumbledore.
Dumbledore.
Yes, you probably know my famous cousin Dumbledore, but
Yes, yeah.
yes, I'm the clumsy wizard. First spell I ever cast, I turned my father's hat into a chicken, and it flew away. Yeah, and it stars a blind princess, and who has a princessdom. She has a guide
Is that
owl.
Aaron?
Yes, she plays
Yeah.
Princess Claudia in the audiobook version.
We love their nepotism.
Yeah, and you know, Iris the guide owl is there, and Fumbledore, and she wishes the clouds away because she doesn't want it to rain on her birthday party, and finds out there are consequences. So that is the first of a series of tales from the princessdom that I've written, and
Is
also
that like
available in audio.
a 50-page book?
It is, yeah, about a 40-page book. And
with the
it's
illustration, that's lovely.
wonderfully illustrated by Barbara of Zurich.
Oh, that's beautiful.
She does these beautiful illustrations, and
Yeah, that's great. Congrats.
and then I have
Damn,
the
man,
day
you're
the
doing just
bees
great.
went. The Day the Bees Went Away is going to be the sequel about how important bees are. So it's a series. So it's and now from the author perspective, I'm going out in full wizard costume to schools and talking to the students about the day the clouds went away, how important clouds are, and it's just wonderful. It's a ton of fun to do beyond the narration world.
This is wonderful, Rich. You know, I find it fascinating that you started writing in second grade to make money in school. I made money in school by eating anything for money. As long as it was officially edible, you can mix it up into a pile, and I would eat it.
And Johnny,
a little different skill set.
I did in the background pull this up here so that.
Oh, there it is.
Yay. The original Winnie the Pooh.
Tell us about that, please.
This is at the New York Public Library. I don't know if it's still there, but it's the original. That's Christopher Robin's teddy bear. That's Winnie the Pooh on top. Now, who are these, Richard? You know these guys. That's, that's Eeyore, right?
Yeah, that's Kanga in the middle there, and Eeyore. Oh dear, oh my. Eeyore is on the right, and I don't know what the other on the bottom left. That looks like Dobby from
my wife
from Harry Potter. I don't know.
Lisa will know. My wife will know because she's read all these things to all our kids.
So charming. It's a lovely display. There's all kinds of. I know that you're still in Denver, right?
Yes.
People don't realize Denver has a fantastic art museum.
Yes, we do.
And I think whoever town you guys are in, go look at your town's local history museum, art museum. You'll be amazed by the collections that are housed right in your own town. Mm-hmm. Now, did Laura Bogart have something interesting? She had a. I
really look forward to meeting you at the New England retreat. I launched an audiobook club for children in our state who struggle to read for any reason. and a Braille audiobook club with descriptions. So obviously you two
Yeah.
are doing
Oh yeah,
parallel
Yeah.
paths there.
Definitely want to talk to Laura. Look forward to meeting
yeah,
you.
she's delightful.
Yeah.
Tigger and Roo was
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
I
that
can
was
never read
Piglet in
any
the
of the
corner.
comics.
Strange looking Piglet in that picture, but yes. Um,
Well, now I'm going to switch back real
Are the-
quick for people that were
yeah,
going, what was that? And
yeah,
there it is. Yeah.
so
Piglet in the bottom left there.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
so
that's it. Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
Of course, Tigger. Yeah.
I that's one of those things that you got to almost be many moms. My wife has read all those books to all our kids,
Yes.
and made our kids read them to each other, and that's what all my kids are great sight. Like I always think, why don't I read like my kids? Well, they had I had a great mom. It's just she wasn't around to read to me. I didn't read out loud, and that's one of the things that I do see people, you providing an opportunity for children to get involved in stories and reading and that gives them some life skills that carry on into so many other areas. So that's really a fantastic thing that you're doing, and people don't understand how foundational that is. So hats off to you, and my wizard hat off to you. So I don't have that on.
I'm sure that many of us as narrators grew up reading to our kids, started reading to our kids and doing voices. And, that just flows right into becoming an audiobook narrator later in life. And it is so important to read to your children out loud. It's such a great experience for them, and getting them to a library at an early age.
Oh yeah.
I remember the first time I ever went to a library. It was a huge one, West Pullman Library in South suburban Chicago. And they had these huge doors that I had to open with both hands. And I went in with my sister, and there were thousands of books all around. And I went, wow. And my sister Kathy said, and you can take out 5 of those books and take them home for free. And I was like, really? So you talk about a magical place. That's the library.
I'm going to guess, though, that a lot of our, we're going to call them age-challenged friends that we all have. For the 3 of us I see are all over 20. There are, I'm going to guess, a lot of people who are probably in their early 20s that really have not spent much time in a library, because now everything's online. I don't have to ever go to a library and see physical books and that kind of thing, and it's just a whole different world. Hopefully they get the same experience that we had of going into a library and being fascinated by all the books and touching them and feeling them and that kind of thing. We'll have to think about what happened for all my age-challenged friends. Tell me how you are interacting with books these days. Like, I only listen to audiobooks these days, almost exclusively, or ebooks. I have to admit, I love books, and have for decades, but it's becoming something that I now go online to get it. Same for you guys?
Well, my experience is I get to read a lot of children's illustrated books, and they vary. I mean, they vary from Grandpa Goes to Walmart all the way to these magical stories that and of course, the frog that farts, and all these different kinds of children's illustrated books. It's quite the variety. That's my main reading these days, about frogs who fart.
Johnny always tells us about dogs that fart, so
he's down here now.
And in my spare time, I want to mention one thing, Johnny. My hobby is fantasy football. And I also posted in Johnny's group that we're doing a narrators league called Narration Nation Fantasy Football League. So if we're looking for 2 more narrators to join us, David Lawrence, the 17th, is one of our.
Pick a quarterback.
Yeah.
Richard, quarterback, 2 wide receivers, tight end, a
2 running backs, and 2 running backs. Yes. fantasy football. We're looking for people who know, a little bit about it, are not total
Is Bart
beginners,
Starr still playing?
but
Yeah.
yeah, he's
Yes, he
slightly
is.
retired. Uh,
From his
but
wheelchair.
yes, somebody who wants. So it's all audiobook narrators, and if we're looking for 2 more narrators to join the league, so they can contact me at richard@theaudiobookwizard.com if they'd like to join our fantasy football league.
What?
Instead of looking for people to read for you, you're looking for people to play fantasy football.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, priorities.
Yeah, yeah. But I do think, though, being a narrator, since you can't spend 8 hours or 10 hours a day narrating, almost all of us are doing other things on the side as well. I don't know anybody. I mean, you just can't sit in the booth for 10 hours a day. So, yes,
Right.
you're going to narrate for X hours. You're going to prepare for a couple. You're going to do your marketing. And then hopefully you're doing something else that's, that you enjoy as well. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so where do you see this going now? Originally you said you had an author who was thinking they should go AI. That sounds like a horrible
Yeah.
experience to me for children's books. It's like the absolute worst genre you could ever imagine for AI to read. I gotta hear Winnie the Pooh from AI. That's just garbage. But
Yeah.
I know, and it's
La,
coming.
la,
It's
la.
coming quickly. It is coming very, very quickly, where the voices are actually very good, even the children's voices. And with audio description, there is a site called Be My Eyes that has the ability, if you put a picture in, to give you the audio description of it.
uh,
It's through Chat GPT. It's one of their tools, and it's called Be My Eyes, and it actually does an excellent job of describing the pictures. So AI, there is a place for it, even in the children's illustrated book industry, and making these into audio and video books. But once again, you want a storyteller voice, and that is something that AI is still not quite there yet.
That's never going to be there. AI can't act.
and my wife is definitely I can just tell you that I don't know too many moms. There's a few of them, but she loves reading and loved reading from the time she's been young, and all our kids are around it. So children's illustrated books around our house. Just all our house is littered with them. We still have a little library that has 500 books in it, easy. And yeah, so I don't know Ferdinand. I just remember walking in a room and the kids would all be reading it, and laughing, and having a good time. So,
Yeah.
there. Are you planning on doing? Is Ferdinand public domain though, Lisa? I don't know.
I'm not
Doesn't have to
sure.
be for Richard.
Yeah,
Yeah, it has to be if we're going to sell an audiobook version.
I
That
see.
is that's the fine line where
Well,
we can't make a profit as a nonprofit off the sales of the audiobook versions. For the video versions, of course, we are putting them on a platform for specifically blind and deaf children, their parents, and their teachers at dcmp.org. But yeah, there's so many books that we would love to make into audio, and I'm actually going to do an online class, the Illustrated Audiobooks Toolkit, to show authors how they can make their illustrated books accessible, where they can find narrators, where they can find the audio description writers, all that type of thing, the resources. So I'm doing that toolkit coming up.
great. When is that? Do you have a rough idea when that's going to happen?
It'll be out late next month,
Oh,
and
so we're
so
almost
it's
there.
the Illustrated Audiobooks Toolkit.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. I can't spell illustrated.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
um, well, I'm trying to. So people should get hold of you if they want to send you a note of either congratulatory or just get hold of you. Where should they? How do they reach you?
Yes. The best way is
If you want them.
Richard at theaudiobookwizard.com. And that's my website, theaudiobookwizard.com. That kind of encompasses all of what I do, including my books that I've written, and the how to make your book accessible, and the authors can go there to sign up to make their books accessible.
Can you verify that
So
I got the spelling right? I don't mean to interrupt you there. Sorry, but did I spell it correctly?
you did,
Okay,
yes.
because sometimes, okay, cool.
And I
So,
became the audiobook wizard because I actually did the wizard voice for a video game as well as a few books, and went right to Harry Potter. Harry, so good to see you, Harry. I gave your parents their wands, and just lifted the voice from there and became the wizard. So that's my identity
that's super cool. I know Johnny's been
It's
wanting
not
to
a
do
secret
that.
identity now. You've ruined the whole deal. Now we know who you are. Didn't you learn anything from Batman?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, and Johnny, I just want to thank you for helping me early in my career to become a better narrator. I remember I read a horror story excerpt and scared the hell out of you, I think, in our workshop. And
Very likely.
and, and Don, thank you. Many years, as we've said, was it 8 years ago we were in touch about my setup and improving
It
my
is funny.
recording
So
setup.
yeah, so I went back for the audience. I went back. I was gonna send Richard a message, and I looked at it and I realized the first message we had was 8 years ago, and it kind of surprised. I can't believe I'm that old. I mean, in my 20s to know someone 8 years. Gee. So yeah,
Actually, actually, my real voice is like this. I just pretend to sound like this. So that's how you can stay young as a narrator forever.
yeah. Well, the great thing about this business is it does need people at all levels. I'm still learning from the 20-year-olds and the 40-year-olds and the I mean, and the 80-year-olds. It is an amazing group of people, and hats off to you for taking on all this nonprofit stuff where you end up helping countless people around the world and inspiring others, which is just as cool. And of course, you definitely. So, how often should I, contact you if I wanted to be on your radar? And then I obviously know that you're not going to be able to, reach back to everybody who has sent you a message. Correct?
Yeah.
Incorrect?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind hearing from people like once a month just to let me know what projects they're working on and whether they're available and things like that. So really, that's fine. And, I also refer authors to other production companies too, not just myself. So I'm happy to do that and help grow our industry at a time where it's being challenged by
Yeah.
AI and other nonsense.
Awesome, Johnny. So thank you, Richard. Really fascinating having you here, Johnny. Anything to promote here for what do you have coming up here soon? Or
To that Thursday night, I'm doing a microphone insider a group with. I'm doing a podcast with them, and Thursday evening,
awesome.
go find it on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook if you don't already. And Paul Rubin, who we discussed earlier, and I are looking to put together a New York City audiobook workshop, a one-day intensive in New York City, probably August 24th. I'm going to meet Paul in about an hour and a half and discuss that with him. And then, of course, the New England Narrator Retreat, October 14th to 17th, outside Boston. All of us on this will be there, and we still have room for you. And the final thing is, I pointed out online, just get your calendar marked for March 4th, 2025. The Splendiferous Narrator Workshop in New York City will be happening. So
Awesome.
Follow me for all this information. Don, what do you got going?
Yep, and of course I'm doing my tech show at let's see, it's 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, and we talk about everything tech related. So if anyone who had a question, Sasquatch, you can ask questions there about, or that's a great place to ask. You can ask here too, but generally it depends on the guests. So we can talk about headphones and speakers and different options that people have for that kind of stuff. So join us there. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And one of the things that really helps us a ton, and we appreciate it, is when after we're done, if you make a comment on the video and or share it with other people, it really helps us get the word out to so many people, and we appreciate you. And if I remember right, next week I think we have Danielle.
Daniela Aceteli.
Yes, who's just amazing, great person, who's got so many fun things going on, but not only fun, but fun and productive. And she is one of the best networkers out there in the social media. Just she's smart about the way she approaches this business in terms of getting her name out there. And you like Richard, good people making it happen and helping a lot of others. So Richard, thank you for being here. Johnny, good seeing you. Of course.
Thank you so much,
see you
Don and
all
Johnny.
next
Great being
week.
here.
Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the wires. Bye-bye.